This is the 8th of November of the Gregorian year 2020. This is also called Remembrance Sunday in various countries, particularly in those countries which consider themselves to be the members of the Commonwealth. While in certain countries celebrations are taking place due to certain changes, we recall this day as a memorial day, remembering millions of people who suffered during the 2 world wars, but also in various other wars. People who were affected very severely during those wars. Those people who sacrificed everything they had, including their own lives, wanted to see a better world for all of us. I do not think they ever wanted, even at the very moment of their death, that there would be another war each time they fought a day. But wars continue even today. Parts of the Middle East are being ravaged by current, horrendous warlike situations. People are compelled to leave their homes and houses, emigrate from their country, and go to other places with the hope of immigration, but are doomed to be recognized as undesirable refugees only. A grave tragedy which may not be overlooked or even underestimated by any of us. During the First World War, many people from various countries served in the army. My late grandfather was one of them. He served during the First World War and was stationed inter alia, both in England and in France. According to certain reports, he was also captured, if I may use the expression in inverted commas or in speech marks, by the subordinates or subordinated soldiers of Emperor Wilhelm II of Germany, but was released on the ground that he was not a fighting soldier, but merely a physician. His task was to heal people, not to kill them. Notwithstanding, he and many others who were drawn into that particular war, that horrendous war, which officially lasted from the Gregorian years 1914 to 1918, brought too much bloodshed throughout Europe, in parts of Asia, and in other parts of the world too. But those who joined the war, or I should say were drawn into the war, they had a dream. They had a dream that their children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and many others and their descendants would be free from the sufferings with which they themselves had to confront. But this hope of theirs was only short-lasting. Hardly a few decades went by and the world found itself being in another world war, known as the Second World War, which unofficially began as early as in the year 1933, when a certain fanatic was elected to be the Reichschancellor, who was uneducated, knew very little about true politics, and most certainly never had any regards for humanity. He drew his people, and people from his neighboring countries, in plural I'm saying, to the war, without any proper goal other than to exalt himself above all. He wanted to become the master of the world. He claimed to be a lover of all those people who spoke the same language or had the same heritage. But this was no doubt totally futile. This was most certainly misleading, and both his countrymen and women, no doubt the elderly and the children, had to pay very dearly during those years and thereafter. Many others who opposed him were often executed either in gas chambers or in various other methods were used to execute them, often in public, often before his own regime or members of his own regime, often trying to dishonor them, and indeed to call them traitors, even those who truly loved their own country. But both his true countrymen, and I mean the true ones who truly loved their country, and women, and coming from other parts of the world, including this part at which I myself reside, had a goal. They wanted to see their fellow countrymen and women, and also their fellow citizens of the world, would be free from dictatorial regimes, from tyrants. Alas, their hopes were shattered, and indeed continue to be shattered time and time again. As I already mentioned, even today, various parts of the world are being torn apart by warlike situations, by bomb blasting, terrorist attacks, and even attacks caused by various regimes belonging to various states. Perhaps they would be considered to be state terrorists. But this is not the only war with which our world is confronted today. We have a far more severe war to fight at this very moment, a war against the viral infection called coronavirus infection, or COVID-19 as it is also termed. People need to be extremely careful because such illness is probably even a greater threat to the humankind as a whole than all the wars which were fought on the battlefields by soldiers in uniforms. We need to fight this war very tactfully, very cleverly, if I may use the expression in inverted commas, very skillfully. But these are not the only wars to which I am obliged to refer today, even on this very solemn Remembrance Day of the year 2020 of the Gregorian age. Human trafficking and illegal slavery, to which I referred time and time in the past, time and time again in the past, frequently in the past, continue. They do not merely continue, but continue to increase, ever more intensely than ever before, I should say. Indeed, this coronavirus infection is causing too many people to become unemployed, often totally without security, at least in their personal views. They're obliged to send their children to become domestic workers, particularly those who are able to work even as domestic servants. They're often treated not as paid servants, even though theoretically they're paid servants, but as slaves. They're exploited, they're indeed abused, they're even ill-treated, they're mishandled, and often exposed to immorality. Alas, the hopes of those who sacrificed their lives in the battlefield, those who wore uniform, shattered only a few decades later. They did not dream of the war-like situation today. They did not dream of a time of this century or the former one when people would be enslaved. They wanted to see their fellow countrymen and women and their global citizens as fellow men and women being freed from all kinds of tyrannical oppression, injustice, and indeed abuse. You and I, my most respected friends, you and I, most respected viewers of this video, can make a difference if we turn ourselves towards the right, very right that exists somewhere in the world. The very right that leads to justice for all, equality for all, freedom and liberty for all. But you and I need to do something. Even while I address you most respectfully, most solemnly, tens of thousands of people are at risk of being trafficked. They include babies, children, women, and sometimes even men. They have the right to exist freely, as free men and women, as children of freedom, as any of us and every one of us does. Alas, why are they being deprived today? Because we are often too indifferent. We are forgetting their needs. We care too little about them. Or perhaps, as the English phrase says, we couldn't care less. What a tragedy in our world of freedom, when we recall the sacrifices of those who fell during those wars to which I referred a moment ago. How pathetic, how tragic, how unpardonable. Yet, we can make a difference if each and every one of us, individually, and all of us collectively, stand up and speak out against such injustice, which continues today. If we combat such injustice even such heinous crimes of human trafficking and illegal slavery, whether in uniform or in plain dresses. We can make a difference. As I mentioned earlier on a number of occasions too, often a single individual brought a change. Spartacus, who was considered to be a Roman slave, was able to shake the mighty Roman Empire because he was determined to fight against injustice. Late President Abraham Lincoln, if I'm not wrong, the very first Republican president of the United States of America, or the old America, was a single man. He was able to move his fellow countrymen and women to recognize the fact that slavery is evil. Slavery is wrong. Slavery is inhumane. Slavery must be combated and defeated, abolished, and eradicated as a whole. I said this in present because slavery exists even today, unofficially, but illegally, yet more intensely, more effectively, more largely, I should say largely than ever before, more grossly, more inhumanely than ever before. Children and babies are being enslaved. We don't hear their cries because they're out of the reach of our ears, but they are crying for help. They are crying for rescue. They are crying to us, yet we are unable to answer their cries because we are still too indifferent about others. Can we not make a change in the world while we recall those who sacrificed their lives during those wars to which I referred, even the First and the Second World Wars? I believe we can. We need to be committed. We need to be determined. We need to pursue that goal of justice until we attain it, until we reach the final destination of justice, natural justice, equity for all, even with the hope of liberating those people who are enslaved illegally, unlawfully, inhumanely. Therefore, my most respected and dear friends, I request you, indeed I beg you most humbly to come forward and take this pledge with me even on this day, this so-called Remembrance Sunday of this Gregorian year 2020, that we shall not set back, but we are going to speak up and speak out and speak up again on behalf of those who cannot speak up or speak out on their own or are too afraid to do so, even in fear of their lives. Yes, freedom may be, of course, for many of us, but there are still too many people for whom freedom of speech is merely a dream, merely a legend. So let us change this legend to reality and make their dreams come true, and say that we are going to overcome injustice, oppression, illegality, corruption, even human slavery, the heinous crimes of human trafficking and illegal slavery. I thank you, wish you the protection of the same Creator who created those soldiers in uniform who sacrificed their lives during the 2 world wars and in various other wars, who created those victims over there, even those babies, little children, boys and girls and women, and all those who are victimized even as victims of the heinous crimes of human trafficking and illegal slavery. Thank you once again for watching this video. Further now, while I address you live or later at your convenience, but please do not forget those victims who desperately need our help. Thank you once again. God bless. Wish you a solemn Remembrance Day.